The morning sunlight streamed through the forest canopy, casting long shadows across the damp earth beneath. The air was crisp and cool, carrying with it the faint scent of pine needles and decaying leaves. The forest was alive, breathing slowly and rhythmically around him. In the distance, a rustling sound echoed through the trees. It grew louder and louder, becoming more distinct with each passing moment. Soon, a massive figure emerged from behind a towering redwood, its massive frame dwarfing the surrounding vegetation. It was an 8-foot-tall, hairy, muscular creature covered in dark fur. Its features were distinctly human-like, save for its large, flat nose and protruding brow ridge. The man stood before the Bigfoot, his heart racing in his chest. He was tall and athletic, dressed in nothing but a pair of worn-out hiking shorts. His muscles tensed as he waited for the inevitable confrontation. The Bigfoot let out a deep, guttural growl, baring its teeth in challenge. It raised its massive fists, ready to fight. The man knew he had only one choice, to face the Bigfoot head-on. He squared his shoulders and braced himself for the battle to come. The Bigfoot lunged forward, its massive arms swinging wildly. The man ducked and rolled out of the way, landing on his feet in a crouch. He countered with a swift kick to the Bigfoot's knee, but the creature barely seemed to notice the impact. Enraged, it swung its massive fist again, this time connecting with the man's shoulder. Pain shot through his body as he staggered backward. The man clenched his teeth, fighting through the pain. He knew he couldn't last much longer in this fight. His only hope was to find an opening, an opportunity to strike back at the mighty Bigfoot. He dodged another of the creature's powerful blows and countered with a quick jab to its exposed ribs. The Bigfoot grunted in pain but didn't slow down. They circled each other warily, sizing each other up for the next attack. The man knew he couldn't outmuscle the Bigfoot, so he had to rely on speed and cunning. He waited for the right moment, biding his time until the Bigfoot's guard was down. The Bigfoot, meanwhile, simply continued to advance slowly, its massive bulk threatening to crush the man beneath its weight. The tension in the air grew thick as a knife blade. The man knew this was it. This was the moment that would decide the fate of both him and the Bigfoot. He steeled himself, preparing to give everything he had in his final, desperate attempt to survive. As the Bigfoot lunged forward again, the man sidestepped out of the way and ducked beneath one of its massive arms. With all his strength, he drove his fist into the creature's exposed ribs. There was a loud crack, and the Bigfoot let out a pained grunt. It stumbled backward, momentarily off balance. The man saw his chance and seized it. He launched himself forward, aiming a powerful kick at the Bigfoot's knee. The knee gave way with a sickening crunch, and the creature crashed to the ground with a heavy thud. The man stood over the fallen Bigfoot, panting heavily. He knew that he had won the fight, but victory tasted bitter in his mouth. He had never intended for this to happen. He had only wanted to live in peace with the creature and the forest. Now, he wondered if he had made the right choice. He looked down at the Bigfoot, its chest rising and falling rapidly as it struggled to catch its breath, and he knew that he had changed both of their lives forever. As he knelt beside the Bigfoot, he noticed blood pooling around its ribs. He felt a pang of guilt, knowing that he had inflicted this pain. Gently, he placed a hand on the creature's massive shoulder. The Bigfoot looked up at him, its eyes filled with pain and confusion. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't want it to come to this." The Bigfoot struggled to speak through ragged breaths. You were wrong to come here." It wheezed. "This was my home, now it's yours too." The man felt a lump forming in his throat. He knew that the Bigfoot was right. He had invaded its territory, and now he was going to have to live with the consequences. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a handkerchief, gently dabbing at the blood on the Bigfoot's ribs. "I'll do my best to respect your home," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I promise." The Bigfoot looked into his eyes and nodded slowly. "Thank you for sparing my life," it managed to say before closing its eyes and succumbing to exhaustion. The man sat beside the Bigfoot for what felt like hours, watching over it and wondering what the future held for them both. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the forest floor, he realized that he had to make a decision. He could either stay here and attempt to care for the injured Bigfoot, or he could leave and find help. He knew that the Bigfoot was likely too heavy for him to move, but he also knew that if he left it here, it would most likely die. Reluctantly, he stood up and surveyed the area around them. There was a small stream not far away, and he knew that the water would help clean the Bigfoot's wounds. Gently, he lifted the massive head into his lap and began to wash away the blood and dirt. The Bigfoot stirred briefly, but it didn't wake up. As he worked, the man couldn't help but think about the stories he had heard about Bigfoots and their intelligence. He wondered if the Bigfoot would ever be able to forgive him for what he had done. He knew that he couldn't change the past, but he hoped that somehow they could find a way to live together in peace. Finally, when he felt that the Bigfoot's wounds were as clean as he could make them, he gathered a few branches and built a small fire nearby. The light from the flames cast dancing shadows across the giant's face, making it look almost human. He sat back down and watched the fire, lost in thought. As the night wore on, he dozed fitfully, his mind filled with thoughts of the Bigfoot and the forest. He knew that this was now his home, whether he wanted it or not. And he also knew that he had a responsibility to protect it, and the creatures that lived within it. In the end, he decided that he would stay and try to make the best of the situation. When the sun rose again, the man was greeted by the sight of the Bigfoot's chest rising and falling slowly, indicating that it was still alive. He breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that for now, they were both safe. The future, however, was still uncertain. But he knew that together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. He spent the day tending to the Bigfoot's wounds, using the resources from the forest to create makeshift bandages and salves. The Bigfoot was still too weak to move, but it seemed to appreciate his efforts. As the day went on, its eyes grew less dull, and it even managed a few small smiles when the man spoke to it. That night, as the man sat by the fire once again, he pondered the possibilities of their new life together. He knew that it would not be easy, and there would be many obstacles to overcome. But he also knew that they could learn from each other, and that their partnership might just be what they needed to survive in this harsh, unfamiliar world. As he stared into the flames, he couldn't help but wonder what the Bigfoot was thinking. Did it feel any guilt or remorse for what had happened? Or had it already moved past those emotions and found a way to accept their new reality? He decided that he would give the Bigfoot time to process its feelings, and when it was ready, they could discuss their options together. The next few days passed slowly, but the Bigfoot's strength began to return. It was still too weak to walk on its own, so the man fashioned a makeshift stretcher using branches and animal skins. Together, they were able to move slowly through the forest, exploring their new surroundings and learning about the various plants and animals that inhabited it. One day, as they rested beneath the shade of a large tree, the Bigfoot turned to the man and spoke for the first time since their encounter. Its voice was weak, but steady. "My name is Tegan," it said. "What is yours?" The man felt a sense of relief wash over him. He knew that this was a crucial moment in their relationship, and he wanted to approach it with care. He hesitated for a moment before responding. "My name is Jason," he said, extending his hand. "It's good to finally meet you, Tegan." Tegan took his hand and smiled weakly. "It's good to meet you too, Jason," it said. "Thank you for everything you've done for me." Jason returned the smile, feeling a sense of hope begin to blossom inside him. Perhaps, after all, they could find a way to make this strange, new life together.